Hello. Um, is individuality a breakdown of humanity? I don't know. And today I would like to discuss just that. I wrote the beginning of what could be an essay for this, or I started to last month. Give me a second. Cleaning up my desk a little bit. I started to write something about this last month, and I planned on developing it into a more like fully formed essay, but I find that it's easier for me to further my ideas by developing them through dialogue. So that's what I'm gonna do today. That's Fang, by the way. He just got dinner, so I'm gonna just read essentially what I started with, and then just go from there. It started with kind of poetry, so. A coalesced hand reaches its petrified fingers into the lake. Water so clear I cannot see my own reflection, my presence moot amongst it all. This morning I went down to the creek and prayed. I let my tears fall, washed away by the gentle caress of a current. What is the definition of existence if we do it alone? What is the reason for life if it is spent fighting, harming others, just to indulge in sin? The earth will teach you, reprimand you when you take too much. How long can one be reprimanded before they learn? What can even make up for the scale at which these daily atrocities are being committed? Money creates an idea of an untouchable, but in the end, death will come. We are all mortal. How can we choose to not only live, but to die in regenerative ways? Sometimes I feel as though linear life has no purpose. My ontology has changed. I find peace and purpose in being part of the cycle, the circle. I find purpose in being a part of something. Setting myself apart to compete is lonely and disheartening. Individualism is a breakdown of humanity. Before I get into the essay, I want to talk a little bit about this. The earth will teach you, reprimand you when you take too much. How long can one be reprimanded before they learn? I was thinking about this, especially in the context of the hurricanes and the floods that have been ongoing recently, especially the flooding that happened in Texas. I saw it on the news actually the day that I wrote this, and over 100 people died, if I remember correctly. And where was Ted Cruz? In Europe. Mother Earth is clearly teaching us our lessons. She is clearly reacting to the perils of capitalism and what they've done to her. But the problem is, natural disaster and the earth can't tell apart a billionaire from an innocent civilian. And I think that is the issue, is we're seeing so many innocent people die. So, I mean, not just from global warming, but that's what I'm talking about specifically right now. And the onslaught of capitalism and wealth disparities making this worse. There's also, like I said, how long can one be reprimanded before they learn? In an ideal world, it would be the billionaires that are being reprimanded. In reality, they're just really good at taking advantage of the systems that are in place. They know how these systems work. They know how the economy works. They know how to get people to use them to their own advantage. So of course they're going to be billionaires. The earth cannot target them specifically. Is that our job? I don't know. I'm not here to say that. But it's humanity as a whole is suffering because of the systems that especially the richest of the rich are perpetuating every day with the amount of private jets and emissions that they use for all of their business models and stuff. So, like, what can we can only do so much as individual people. As a community, we can do more, but I guess I'm going to talk a little bit about individualism as a breakdown of humanity. When these rich people die, because they will die, they are mortal. Just because they have billions and billions of dollars does not mean they won't die eventually, whether by choice or not. I don't know. Their money will live on. It'll get passed down, and that's why this whole system is not, it doesn't work. It doesn't work for the people, the general people. It doesn't work for the earth, for the planet. It doesn't work. It does not work. So something needs to change. Okay. Individualism is a breakdown of humanity. Now, this is a thesis that I have, but I'm going to kind of break it down and also contradict it a little bit, because I don't fully believe that. And also, I don't fully believe that there's no such thing as one truth. There's always going to be a contradiction, and I think it's important to display any and all sides. Okay. Individualism is a breakdown of humanity, a poison, a sickness, an erosion. A community asunder is weak, and yet we isolate ourselves and call it strength. The definition of humanity by Merriam-Webster. Hey! First definition: compassionate, sympathetic, or generous behavior or disposition, the quality or state of being humane. Okay, right. Number 2, the quality or state of being human. Number 4, the totality of human beings, the human race, or humankind. These definitions go hand in hand, I think. To be human, humane, or part of the human race is associated with terms and qualities such as compassion, sympathy, and generosity. Compassion, sympathy, and generosity all inherently need a projection, like someone you're interacting with, someone you are compassionate to, someone you are sympathetic for, you are generous towards others. These are actions. These are actions. You can't be compassionate or sympathetic or generous when there is no one but you. Okay. I'm up for debate, but that's what I'm going to say. Individualism, as defined by the Cambridge Dictionary, is the idea that freedom of thought and action for each person is the most important quality of a society rather than shared effort and responsibility. Freedom and thought of action for each person is the most important quality of a society. I don't directly disagree with that. I think that individual freedom is really important, and I think we can't control, or we can't want to control, everyone's ideas and actions. We need to have some sort of individuality, a little bit, to create a diverse and critical space to live and be in. But when that comes at the cost of the greater good of the community, that is when it breaks down our humanity. I wrote, this directly contradicts humanity and the qualities associated. To be compassionate, sympathetic, and generous is to bring in the other, to share yourself and connect. To be humane, you might directly contradict your own freedom in thought and action. So not only is individualism a breakdown of one's humanity, but it is eroding humanity as a whole. We can't always get what we want, but if you try sometimes, get what you need, right? Okay. James Baldwin in The Fire Next Time said, if we had not loved each other, none of us would have survived. We must love each other to survive this, to stay humane, keep our humanity. Individualism fosters competition instead of connection, especially capitalistic individualism, or rugged individualism, which is the exact thing that capitalism pushes us to become. In this ontology, we learn to fear our neighbor. We learn to hoard resources instead of sharing them with our community. We learn to gatekeep and use others as steps towards our own success. We become snide and hateful. It is easy to get lost here, especially if it is how we are raised or the common practice of those we are surrounded by. I've been there. It's easy. I was raised to be an individual, so raised to only rely on myself. And there are pros and cons to this. I had my gripes with it, but the point is, it's damaging. It does more harm than it does good, and I've realized that from being raised that way and then coming into a world in which there is so much beauty to be shared, and you can grow a lot better with other people helping you. Crazy thought, it's okay to ask for help. It is a constant struggle. It is a constant struggle for survival, a ceaseless competition, even after our basic needs are met. We learn that the individual comes before the community, and we do what we have to survive, because we believe that individuals make a community. Right? That's pretty easy to grasp, right? A community is made up of a bunch of individuals, right? Okay. But, okay, hear me out. What if it is community that makes up the individual? You might be like, what the hell? Hold on a second. This is a shift not only ontologically, but epistemologically as well. Many Indigenous scholars have spoken on this way of knowing and experiencing the world. The way that I was introduced to this notion, which is called relationality, was through reading Shawn Wilson's Indigenous research paradigm in his book Research as Ceremony, as well as Robin Wall Kimmerer's Braiding, Sweetgrass. Of relationality, Shawn Wilson says all things are related and therefore relevant. In his book Research as Ceremony, he describes this notion through a story of his own experience, which I will not retell, but I urge you to read. Essentially, this is Footnotes version. I think it's on like page 80 of the book. I have it over there on my bookshelf, but I'm not gonna look. I don't feel like going to grab it. But he talks about the individual being made up of relational knots. Think of like a web, and everything is coming together. Every knot is a point of connection. And that's what the physical form is made up of. We are made up of our relationships. We do not exist without our relationships. That is the whole very basic rundown of relationality. Everything is related and therefore relevant. And I'm not talking people. I'm not talking just relationships to people. I'm talking to the world outside, to the plants, to the animals, to the elements. Everything is related and therefore relevant. Essentially, each individual is made up of their relationships. Another quote from the book, we would not be without being in relationship. When we come to understand ourselves as made up of our relationships, we begin to pay more attention to how we show up in them. By caring for your relationships, you care for yourself. By showing up consistently in our relationships, we consistently show up for ourselves. By strengthening our relationships, we strengthen ourselves. That's pretty easy to understand, right? Acting in this way, showing up in a generous and reciprocal manner, undermines individuality. When we begin to see our lives through an ontology based in relationality, we begin to understand that caring for others takes care of the self. By neglecting our relationships in order to survive, we are not only hurting ourselves, but our community. We sustain ties by being compassionate and forgiving, says Bell Hooks in All About Love. And in Braiding, Sweetgrass, Robin Wall Kimmerer says, sustain the ones who sustain you and the earth will last forever. I think I should also quickly touch on, I'm saying ontology a lot. Ontology is essentially one's reality. What you believe to be your reality, how you see the world, how you experience the world, that is your ontology. And it differs from person to person. Yeah. I should have defined that earlier, but okay. The rugged individualism spoon-fed to us by capitalism is inherently destructive. When we believe we can do it alone, we kill ourselves trying. We have to pay to survive, auctioning off our labor at a fraction of its worth, at a value deemed and set by the oppressor. To do it alone, we work our lives away at a job we hate but cannot afford to lose, and the few hours of leisure that might be left are spent consuming. Worthless media, empty desires, are items sold to us promising satisfaction, salvation for just a moment, for our mind-numbing and intensely strenuous day. This is how capitalism keeps us in chains. We do anything to escape from a soul-crushing cycle, even when that thing is consuming what they feed us. Brief history lesson. Brief history tangent. This started during the Industrial Revolution when factory work became very common, and especially when assembly lines became the norm. So an individual who was working at an assembly line would be doing the same repetitive thing over and over and over again, instead of, as opposed to a job where maybe you're a farmer, you have to do a lot of different tasks. There's a high yield at the end of the year or season or whatever. You're working towards a goal. That was rewarding, right? To some extent. When you enter the factory line workforce, you are reduced to being a single cog in the machine. You are reduced to the one easily replaceable skill that you have. You are nothing but a body and hands. You're not working towards something. It's not like you're given a bunch of pieces and you get to build the thing yourself by doing a bunch of different little things. No, you're doing the same thing over and over again, passing it on to the next person so they can do the next step. You're working efficiently as a whole, but there is no self-satisfaction there. And so, when most of the population began working jobs like this, there was a general dissatisfaction, especially because general dissatisfaction is such an understatement, but especially because you're working long hours, you are there all day, there's not much worker protection. Capitalism was like, hey guys, you hate your job, but you can't afford to lose it. How about you buy satisfaction? Look at all these things you can buy. Look at all these things you could buy. Isn't that crazy? You can buy happiness, especially, okay, in 1938, Freud's nephew, I don't remember his name, Edward Bernays, wrote a book called Propaganda about how to use military propaganda persuasion techniques to persuade the average consumer through advertisement. And so after this book was published and was circulated through advertising agencies and companies and stuff, you can see the upshoot in advertising desires and things like that. And so that's where it began, that we learned that we can purchase satisfaction, or we were taught that we can purchase satisfaction because of the instant gratification you can get. And it's colorful, and you're buying convenience. Your leisure, the leisure market, right? Okay. I'm going to continue on now. This is going to be a long video, and I'm sorry, but also not, because if anyone listens, I'm glad for it. In Fight Club, okay, hear me out. In Fight Club, Tyler Durden said, "The things that you own end up owning you." When our identity becomes entwined with our material items, our inanimate reality, we become isolated. Relationality challenges this by placing the importance in one's life on relationships rather than what one owns. When identity and power are tied to ownership, competition is a natural byproduct. We will do anything to own our desire, which more often than not are desires planted by advertisers. Desire is born of lack, and therefore can be chased but never caught. The way that advertisements work, they're telling you something you need. They want you to buy it. So, for example, let's see. This pimple patch that I'm wearing right now. Have bad skin? Buy this pimple patch. It'll clear your skin up right away, instead of I'm going to change my diet and eat better and do all these things. I don't have hormonal acne, so this is like a very, specific situation. But I could just change other things so that my skin would clear up. I could just wash my face more often. But why do that when I can fix a problem of my own doing by just buying something and making it easy? Right? Okay. Desire is born of lack and therefore can be chased but never caught. If you want to be beautiful, okay, that's big. You desire beauty. You look at the magazines, you look at the social media posts. This is beautiful. This is beautiful. This will make you beautiful. These things constitute beauty. When that notion becomes defined, that is when you feel you have to purchase things to define yourself into that box. Boxing yourself in is the way that you shut yourself down. And I had to learn that the hard way. Okay. You don't lack anything. That's why gratitude is radical, but we're going to talk about that in a second. There are a few ways to challenge this material desire and gratuitous addiction. Tyler Durden also said, "It is only after we've lost everything that we're free to do anything." Robin Wall Kimmerer says in Braiding Sweetgrass, expressing gratitude, recognizing abundance rather than scarcity, undermines an economy that thrives by creating unmet desires. Gratitude comes as a gift rather than as a commodity, which subverts the whole foundation of the economy because it's thriving on unmet desires. If you understand that your desires are already all met, then you don't need to buy anything new. By foregoing our material items, which are purchased, for the most part, as more important than our relationships or that which is generously given to us, we begin to return to our humanity. To practice generosity and recognize the abundance of that which already exists in each of our realities, we no longer need to purchase to feel whole. We come to value differently. There's so much abundance in the world, and I guess I will say it's very easy for me to say. I live in the US right now, which has too much stuff. We're like the consumerism fucking capital of the world. But the abundance of what we have, there are so many people I know in my daily life that don't recognize that abundance or don't recognize it quite as frequently as maybe I do. And they still buy to satisfy. And that's playing into this consumerist rabbit hole. I don't need to go shopping for fun. I can go sit outside. It's beautiful. The wind is there. I don't need to pay for music. The wind is there. That sounds crazy to maybe some people, but I still listen to music. Anyways, okay. We fear our lack and spend our lives in search of ways to achieve our desires. Maybe we are scared of that which is empty and constantly search to fill. We fear our lack and spend our lives in search of ways to achieve our desires. Maybe we are scared of that which is empty and constantly search to fill. I wrote about this on a different day, which I'm now just making that connection, so. Okay, I wrote, anytime or every time something is lost, there must be a shift, a replacement. But must every void be filled? Maybe not. Maybe it's less replacement and more redistribution. Yeah, if you lose something, we tend not to try and dwell on that loss because it hurts, it's empty. We look for something to fill it back up again. Addictions, my friend once said that addictions don't go away, they're just replaced by something else. And I think to some extent that is true, but like I just mentioned, I don't know if replacement is the right word as much as redistribution. You have enough of what you already have, like what exists is already enough. Redistribute what you already have to fill that void. You have more than enough. You got more than enough, I'm telling you. Okay, and that's a convoluted statement and can be contradicted because I'm in a very privileged place living where I am and being who I am. And a lot of people don't. This is more of like a something to look at when your basic, like recognizing when your basic needs are already met. Like, dude, that's all you could fucking ask for. Think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, okay? You got the basic ones and then you go up. There are so many people in the world who do not even have their basic needs met. And so the fact that you are unhappy, distraught even, when you have more than your basic needs met, because you're greedy and you're hungry. I've been there. And looking back, it makes me feel disgusted with myself. Okay. From The Fire Next Time, James Baldwin says, to defend oneself against a fear is simply to ensure that one will, one day, be conquered by it. Fears must be faced. Okay. Very easy notion. What are you scared of? Go out and confront it face to face. Easier said than done, but, you know. We can face the fear of lack by accepting it. This is if we are viewing lack on the individual level, where the individual must have all parts and do everything. Like I mentioned earlier, the rugged individual is the self-reliant, the I did it all by myself, I can do it all by myself, I don't need anybody else. Okay? It's hard when the individual is lacking, and then you put it harder on yourself to learn these things while you have to do everything else, and it's difficult. Very difficult. When re-examining lack through a relational lens, things change. When taking in the whole and readjusting our lens to see ourselves as one part of the whole, we begin to understand that each piece of this whole brings together their own gift to the table. Every gift is individual and no other can replace or replicate it. When we feel a lack in ourselves, we can turn to our community to help. We ourselves are not whole, rather we are a piece of it, the larger web or fabric. This way, there's less pressure on you because you can rely on your community. That's why building community is so important, especially when capitalism wants us all to be rugged individuals. Building community is one of the most important things we can do for ourselves. Respect one another, support one another, bring your gift to the world, and receive the gifts of others, and there will be enough for all. Robin Wall Kimmerer. Founded in relationality is communal resilience. Love and collectivity is the key to our survival. Carl Jung said, "Where the will to power is paramount, love will be lacking." Power, or the hungry search for power, trumps our humanity. Humanity is rooted in love, gratitude, compassion, and collectivity. Bell Hooks says, "Love as a combination of trust, commitment, care, respect, knowledge, and responsibility. In order to heal our humanity, we must come together as a collective." I do truly believe that. If we go back to the original thesis, individualism is a breakdown of humanity, we can... I don't know if the individual is a breakdown of humanity. It's more rugged individualism, I think. Individualism might be a facet of what breaks down humanity, but individuality is integral to the growth and survival of the whole. Of this, Robin Wall Kimmerer says, "When the individuals flourish, so does the whole. Individuality is cherished and nurtured because, in order for the whole to flourish, each of us has to be strong in who we are and carry our gifts with conviction so they can be shared with others." For me, and my individualist to optimistic community member arc, that's a weird way to phrase that, but it was a lot of relearning myself. I did a lot of deep introspection to figure out what my gift was. And the thing is, there's not just one gift that you have to give. It's infinite and it's ever changing. But what I did was I took a look at my whole life and I synthesized my entire life to figure out what skills I had, highlight running themes throughout my entire life. And I know that sounds crazy, and most people don't have time to do that. And that's okay. This is just something to chew on, something to think about. But it changed from I had to do everything myself. That's how I was raised. That's what I was taught. I can only rely on myself to I need others to survive. And I'm a lot more stable in myself now because of it. I'm a lot more secure in who I am, and I feel a lot more supported. I have a large support system now. And I also understand that everything will fluctuate and change. I do not have to force myself to stay the same, and I don't have to force my community to stay the same either. Things will come as I need them. Things will come as you need them. And it's just learning to appreciate what is here and all of it. Take lessons from everything, from everyday life. You know, there's always an opportunity to learn, even if you do the same things over and over again every day. But remember, face your fears. Because that's how change happens. Try something out of the ordinary, and that is how change happens. So, after offering this all to you, this large rant, this 35-minute long video, I hope that maybe you will go out and think about maybe your gift, or are grateful for something today, say it out loud. I'm so grateful for this meal. I'm so thankful for everything that was put into this lovely meal that I have today, and everyone who worked really hard to get it to me. I try and do that every day. That's the easiest thing. I'm so grateful that the trees are still alive up here, even if most of the apples have fallen down early. Try and build community. Reach out to friends you haven't talked to in a while. Just catch up, call somebody. Go for a walk. Ask your friend if they want to do something. Go to a book club, read together. This is the beginning step of resilience. You can't stand against an earthquake alone, but reinforce yourself, and everyone has a better chance of surviving. Okay, that's it for today. If you have any thoughts, let me know. If you got this far. Okay, much love. Bye.